yesterday when we could not finish the midpoint formula, that you should be able to find it in the book, and was it there? And was it easy to find?
Yes.
Yeah, it should have been like a title, maybe like a box, maybe some highlighting around it. Anyway, it was there. But I just want to really quickly give you a way of remembering. I'm not going to go super in depth like I did with the distance function. Can anybody give me a quick little, sounds kind of smart and mathy description of a midpoint?
A point on a line that is equally the distance to the other endpoint.
That is equidistant from that endpoint. I like that. That works. Or you could say that it is a point which bisects a segment into two congruent pieces. That works too. But yeah, either way. Either way. My way of remembering the midpoint formula is that you average the x's and average the y's. What x's, what y's? Well, remember you have two different points, right? Why am I doing y2? I don't know. Okay, you have two different points, x1, y1, x2, y2. Remind me real quick, what's an average? I'm going to call this m because it's my midpoint. How do you average like a list of scores? Yeah, what
you add them together and then you divide by the number of things you're adding together.
Exactly. So, question, how many x's do we have? So I'm going to add the two x's together and then divide by just averaging them. And then, how many y's? Yep, I'm just averaging them. Midpoint formula. Dun, 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 dun. Do the example, make sure we got it. Beware the signs. S-I-G-N-S. Not the trig function.
I did.
Oh, it's yellow. Threw me off. So we're all covered, right? She's my history teacher after high school and junior high. So we would always go at his jokes. Okay. So all you guys had to do for your midpoint was hopefully to go ahead and do negative 5 plus 9, negative 3 plus 3. You guys had more time. I'm doing it fast. Because usually I can, but still keep me honest. Make sure I'm not making any silly mistakes. But I believe the midpoint is 2, 0. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Nice. Some of you might have gone strict mental math and been like, oh, if it's that easy, then negative 5 plus 9, 4, 4 divided by 2 is 2. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0, 0 divided by anything is 0. Unless it's 0 divided by 0, that's a whole other problem. Just beware the mental math. I'm a huge fan of mental math. I'm a huge fan of being able to do math facts quickly and accurately. Just beware the mistakes that can occur. Okay? And ones that like mental math. Kiddos, with that, section 1.1 is dun 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 dun. Let's go ahead and check those evens. So, pen, drop, or no, pencil, drop it. Sorry. I want to hear it. Drop it. On the ground. Just drop. Color pen should already be out, and here we go. Sorry. Not trying to stress everyone out. Just get the procedure down so it should go fast. Drop the pencil, add the pen, here we go, number 8. If you have any answer other than what is there, should put a little line through it, put the right answer, and then if you have time, consider what went wrong. If you have time, consider what went wrong. Number 8, the correct point, -12, 0. Number 14, yes, there is a description, but the long story short, quadrant 1 or 3. And if you're asking, I got one of them, you are half wrong. It asks, when is that true? You need both quadrants, not just one. Number 44, you are doing a shifting of that triangle. I think you're shifting it, oh, I can tell, left 10, because you're subtracting 10 from the x, and down 6, you're subtracting 6 from the y's, hence the new vertices are as such. You might have a picture as well, that'd be cool. 54, 2 different answers to 2 different questions. If you're on the x-axis, y is 0. You don't have to have the full sentence, but you need the idea. And if you're on the y-axis, the x is 0. But as soon as we get down to number 58, I better open up a book. Speaking of a book, who are you? What's going on? Hold on, weird stuff's popping up. Okay. Hey, that's nifty. There might be like an electronic version of our book. Has anybody looked on the website underneath helpful links? Okay. If you have not looked on the website under helpful links, you might be missing an opportunity to get the book in PDF form. Now, here's a big dilemma. The one that I have under Precalculus, under helpful links, I have it saved somewhere else, so I already have it ready to go, but I'm trying to show you guys for sake of illustration. Do you see online textbook? It's super cool. Pull it up and say, yay, it's my textbook, except. How big is your textbook? Huge. Who makes that textbook? College textbook distributors. What do college textbook people love to make? Money. So unlike high school textbook distributors, which also like to make money but don't quite have as much of a monopoly as college textbook distributors do, college textbook people don't give anything away for free. Anything. So, this one only has chapters 1 through 3. How many chapters are in our book? 12. Are you good for the first 3 chapters with this one? Yes. I do have another file that I did have to actually go and purchase an electronic copy of your textbook. You could do that too. That'd be super fun. You could do like a subscription. You could pretend to be a college kid for a while and be like, how do I pay for books and not in an expensive way? It's a struggle. Talk to older siblings. They'll tell you all about it. Chegg, a great website to rent books only for a semester. Anyway, coming back. You could buy your own copy, or once we get to chapter 4, I cannot post this online. It is illegal. But as a teacher, I do have the ability to not, no, like this is actually, it's legal. It just sounds bad. I have the ability to bend the rules a bit on copyrights and on things like that. So I cannot post it publicly because obviously that would be me putting it out there for the world to see, and I can't. But I am allowed for my classes anyway. I can email you a much bigger file that has the entire textbook, but you could not access it on your phone. It is too big. It will not show up. You'd have to download it on like a desktop or a laptop. So, just wanted to let you know, this one's good, chapters 1 through 3. Once we get to chapter 4, if you're like, I really use that and I would use it on a computer and not just my phone, then there is a file for you and I can email it to you. But most of you are like, well, that's pointless if I can't see it on my phone or my tablet or whatnot. So, just letting you know, it's the way it is. I'm sorry. That's what happens when you get to classes that are basically college level. Lo siento. Okay, coming back. Anyway, I have the book open. Let's go ahead and peek really quickly at number 58. And here's the reason why. Did anybody figure out that number 58, as it is written in your textbook, if there were no corrections made to your homework assignment, it's impossible to do letter A?
Yeah, I realized that. It's just marking it.
If you have your book, can you go ahead and open to the homework from last night, number 58, which should be page 10. If you have your textbook. If not, check it tonight. There is a typo in your textbook. The answer key is correct. So just a second ago, I had number 58 on the screen. I have a highlighted yellow box around letter A because this answer is correct, but it does not match the question in your book, which is why some of you had from last year, someone with pen mark out letter A and put the correct problems in letter A. So please, if there is nothing changed in your book for letter A, can you take a pen right now, put a line through the problem in letter A, put a line through x sub 0, y sub 0, put a line through it. It is incorrect. I'll model it on the book itself. If you guys matched correctly B and C and D, what was the one option that was left? No, not 3. Not 4. 2. 2 was the one that was left. This is supposed to be the match to A. So pause. Let's think about it. Does it seem to be going the exact same x as the original? Yeah, the x seems to be the same, and the x is supposed to be the same. But what changed? The y. Instead of going up, the y goes down. So how do I do that in math? How do I make it go the opposite direction? The correct problem as shown in the answer that you will see in just a second, the problem should have been x sub 0, comma, negative y sub 0. Then it would properly match to 2, and that is exactly what the answer key shows. The problem is this book was basically published a little too soon. So we're going to have a few mistakes every now and then. But if you guys fix it this year, then poor people next year will not have to deal with it. Have you guys fixed it? Pause. Not just put a line through it. Write the correct problem in the book with your pen. Write this down on letter A. This is what the problem should have been, should be. So let me go ahead and let you guys check the answers now that we've fixed it, okay? So, letter A should match with 2 as it is properly written. See, they had it right in the answer. And then 3, and then 4, and then 1. Some of you might have tried to make it work, and I understand why. You might have tried to match letter A with, what was the other positive one? With 4. You might have tried to match A with 4, but then you would have gotten messed up on C. So, just kind of be aware of that. You might have tried to make it work, and it didn't really, and that's why you missed it. But hopefully now with the typo corrected, we're good. Were there any more evens, guys? Was that it? That's it? Okay, we've gone over number 58. I'm sure a few of you guys had a question on that because it was like, how does that work? Do you have any other or further questions on the homework? Evens or odds? Further clarification or how it was supposed to be done? Yeah, AJ.
I saw the...
That's okay. 44?
Yeah. And I might have done the original wrong.
Okay, let me check really quickly that the points were the same. So we had 5, 8, 3, 6, and 7, 6. 5, 8, 3, 6, 7, 6. Okay. With number 44, you had to think about the direction. Remember I said that this would dig a little deeper into some of the things that you would call basic. So they gave me 3 points. Kind of look at number 41. It's very similar. In the sense of they're giving you, in number 44, the 3 vertices of a triangle. So giving you 3 points that would combine to make a triangle. And you could have drawn a picture if you really wanted to. You would have had it approximately, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 6-ish, 7, 6-ish, and 5, 8-ish. It'd be about there, roughly. And they want you to shift the 6 down and 10 left. So just think about the directions, down and left. So we have x's and we have y's. Which one affects the up or down, the height of the points? The y's. So we need to go ahead and say, okay, if we want to shift this entire triangle down 6, we need the y's to all subtract 6. Take the heights that are current, take 6 away from the heights, and that would go ahead and lower it. Does that make sense? So that's why each of the y's are going to subtract 6. And if you think left, well, which coordinate affects the right or left? The x. And so if I need to go left, I'm going in the negative or positive direction. Good. Negative direction, which means take all the x values and subtract 10 from each. Which is why, if you take the first point, instead of having 5, 8, which is this one up here, you would do 5 minus 10, which would be negatives. So now you'd be over here. But you're not the same height either, because you're not only subtracting 10 from the 5, but you're also subtracting 6 from the 8. So you end up right about here. And as you shift the other two, you should end up to where you roughly move left 10 and down 6. It should be precise, but my picture. So let's go ahead and go peek at the answer key really fast. And make sure those subtractions make sense. So then it was just a subtraction on both levels, a subtraction on both levels, subtraction on both levels. So those would be the 3 new vertices. Once again, you could have had a picture, or you could have just had the points. Any other further questions, evens or odds? Going once? Going twice? Gotta be real with me. If you have a question, let me know. If you're trying to be appropriate and saying, well, no one else has one, so I won't, make sure you come in and ask later, okay? Cool. All right, kiddos. If we didn't have as many logistics and a typo in the book to go over, I might at this point go ahead and have you guys, have you guys start taking the notes from section 2. Have you guys start taking the notes from section 2 as I walk around the room and check that you did the homework and check that there is actually grading on it. Now we'll pause. When I check the homework at the end of the chapter, that's the official, like I'm looking and poring over, not literally, but I'm definitely looking at your homework, the work that you're showing, how much effort you're putting in. Part of that effort is having the pencil, having the work done, and then the pen having the correction. Now what if you're like, I didn't miss anything? How do you show me that you were tracking and paying attention? But a check and say, ace that one, and I'll be like, sweet, we're done, right? Now, what if you get checks on every single homework every single time and you get like 60s on the tests? Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Okay? Am I going to take off points if I look at a homework and see colored marks? No, I'm giving points because you're trying and then you're correcting. And what is your goal? Trying, having a wrong answer, putting the right answer, and saying, oh well, next homework. You're trying to figure out what went wrong and make sure you can now get it right. Does that make sense? And our homework is where we're practicing, where we're improving, where we're trying to grow and get stronger in the concepts that we have. We'll talk more about homework in just 1 second, but you guys are in your table of contents. This is the last time I'm going to show you any sort of how to do a table of contents. Other than this, it's your job when we start a new section to go ahead and go to the front, put the new section number, put the new section title. And why is there a question mark on the page? Depends on how much space you took. So most of you probably it's page 2. Just a couple of you might have written big. Maybe it's on page 3. No one should have a page 1. Why? If there's extra space, you go to the next slide for a new section, right? We're starting at the very, very beginning. Does that make sense? Understand? So from now on, if I put this in the screen, you're like, oh, new section, table of contents, here we go. Does that make sense? You would get the 1.2 from right here in the upper left-hand corner. You would get the title from right here, graphs of equations. At some point, as I get caught up in some of the quite a bit behind, but I have a weekend coming. You will actually probably start seeing for each section an objective also on the screen. But if you do start seeing objectives, you do not need to write them down. It's just for you to read and understand. That's our goal for the day. Does that make sense? So once objectives do start showing up, once I go one more time, it's a new thing that we You guys have probably seen it in lots of your teachers' classrooms. Objectives are, as I start implementing them, they'll probably show up at the beginning of a section or at the beginning of our day's notes. Just read it, realize that's where we're going, and then realize you don't have to write it down. A couple more things just logistically. When I leave space, half the time it's just for aesthetic appeal. It's just for clarity of what's being shown, meaning. If this is a statement, I have a nice space before an example, I'm not expecting to do anything right here. But am I expecting to do something down here? The answer would be yes. So if you are ever trying to fill out notes, just realize sometimes I'm just leaving space to make things look a little bit clearer and more organized on the screen. It does not always mean like skipping lines. If you do need to skip lines and I'm having you copy down notes, I will denote up there how many lines to skip. Alright, a couple more seconds for you guys to get the example down. Once we get going, the examples are usually hard to get down because I just start solving them. Someone was really focused during math lab on the bench. Alright, you guys should almost have this written down. We're going to come back in just 1 second. Can we talk about really quickly homework expectations? Just real fast. Do you have to do a heading on homework anymore since I do it in the notebooks? No. So this part is no longer necessary because you have it. That's really thick. I apologize. That's rough. Kindergarten. Anyway, but I do want homework number, section, page, problems, right? We did that yesterday. I want that for every homework assignment. Spot checks, that's what I was talking about. If we had more time and we didn't have a lot of logistics to keep on going over, I probably would have gone around the room and made sure that you attempted homework. Attempted meaning you might have gotten stuck on one, and you wrote down the answer for it, but there's still a nice big old space for you to figure out how to get that answer. Because in class isn't necessarily you just copying down all the work, it's you getting the answer and then being like, how do I get there? If I do a spot check, it's going to be worth 2 points only for the assignment. And you might think only, but those add up. And zeros are never good things to have. But 1 point is for a valid attempt. That does not mean the answers are there. That means you attempted the problems to get the answers. Are we tracking on that? And then another point is for the work that is shown. So attempt means that you have, well, these go together. This is basically completion. How much you completed and how well you completed it. Does that make sense? How much you completed, how well you completed it. Homework packets, I'm turning those, or you're turning those in. Those are your spirals. It's not a packet anymore. Well, it's a packet of papers with a spiral. Anyway, you're turning in your homework spirals on the day of, this is totally out of date, on the day of the test request, not the day after, because you need it done by the test request in order to do well. There we go. Homework must be in your homework spiral, no big deal, it's properly in order and completed. So you don't need to skip anymore. But here's the last part I want to go over. Credit. Each assignment for the homework packet, each homework will be worth 4 points. 2 points are for the completion of how well you did it, and then 2 points for how much you did, I should say, and 2 points are for the work shown. Can we pause real quick and talk about incorrect formatting, because we need this for homework 2. For homework 1, I didn't make a big deal about it. We were going over all kinds of logistics, but can you read really quickly what the formatting needs to be? This one should make sense. That one should make sense. What's new to my class? Probably. All in directions fully written out. What does that mean? Did we talk about this yesterday? Didn't think so. Can we go look at the book that I just closed? That's a bummer. I want us to look at the homework assignment really fast from last night. Now, once again, I do not grade for this on homework 1 because we didn't really have time to talk about it, and I'm trying to make a point. Some of you on homework 1 had literally, I don't know, you used maybe like 1/10 of the page for what you were supposed to do. And that's not necessarily bad because some of the questions were really easy. However, if you want to hear more about my rationale as to why I require this, I've been requiring it for at least 5 years, maybe 7. You guys didn't have any questions from vocab this time, right? Sometimes you do. Okay. If you did have a question for vocab, for instance, what would you guys say for number 1? You should know this from notes yesterday. Cartesian plane. Okay? So, if you just wrote Cartesian, that's great and all, but if you're going back to study from your homework, you're like, Cartesian is an important word, and I know nothing about it, but Cartesian is an important word, right? I don't want that. I want you to be able to look at your homework, because remember, you're grading it. You're trying to say, like, here are my weaknesses. I need to work on them. But if you just look at something, and you have 1, -2, and it's wrong, you're like, great. That was wrong. Don't know why. Or, if you don't want to have to bring your book to class every day and you have homework questions, or I challenge your thinking on a homework problem, I mean, you could bring your book every single day and open it up every single day, but that's kind of tedious. You could, if you're trying to study for a test, I guess you could turn to each of the homework sections and compare them to your red marks and have to study and compare back and forth, etc. Same thing for the final. However, it's nicer if you can go ahead and have it all there, the important information, and also, what's one of the worst types of problems, what do you think, for math students? Word problems. Why are word problems so hard? So much to read. Either A, you're like, this is dumb, and you give up and don't even read it. You just have this and do something nice. B, you kind of read it, and you like miss half the information, so you take the half you do kind of get, and you forget the rest of it, and you try to do something, and you usually get it wrong. Or C, let's see, that was cheating. That was, C is just not doing it at all. Anyway, if you get to a word problem and I make you write down the important information, for instance, on number 1, you could say Cartesian plane, like with a colon, ordered pairs in a rectangular coordinate system. You can summarize, you can shorten, make it the short and sweet, the main idea. Cartesian plane, rectangular coordinate system with ordered pairs. Okay? What you're doing is you're reading the information, you're processing the information, and you're saying this is the important stuff. What do you need to do for word problems? Read the information, process the information, pick out this is the important stuff, right? That's what I want you to do for homework. And for those of you that are like, yeah, just kind of like, well, I shouldn't say that. I try to make my way through my homework as quickly as possible. You guys are the ones that are going to be making tons and tons of little mistakes or getting to the end of a chapter and being like, I kind of did the homework, but I have no clue what I was supposed to have learned, and I definitely am not ready for the test where I'm supposed to show that I can do all the things that I was supposed to have learned. When you read and when you have to write down and summarize what you're doing, you are giving yourself an extra, 5-10 seconds with the material. I'm forcing you to read it. I'm forcing you to read the directions and not just the problems. And hopefully I'm forcing you to slow down just long enough that you don't make those silly, dumb little mistakes as often. Does that make sense? Okay, if you want to hear more about my rationale, feel free, come on in and we'll just hash it out. I totally don't mind. However, let's go ahead and talk really quickly about some of the problems you did have. Let's go ahead and just go, for example, to this section because that paragraph looks awful. Who wants to write all that? Nobody. What if I asked you more than one question in this section, which I'm pretty sure I probably did? So I want you to write the directions twice.
No.
Or 3. No. No, not at all. Put it just like you see it in the homework. Directions, and then do a couple problems that go with it. Directions, couple problems that go with it. Now hold on. So I want you to write determining quadrants for a point in exercises no. Can anybody look at this, read the directions real fast, and tell me a quick way of summarizing what you're supposed to do? Fine. That's shorter, someone go shorter. Amen.
Determine the quadrants and where they are located.
Okay, that's pretty good. Can they go even shorter? Chris.
Determine the quadrant.
Okay, can they go even shorter? That's okay. I'll just do mine. I would say find the quadrants where, ... Or you can say find the quad where, ... Nice. Go team. What's a quad? Put a period. It's an abbreviation for quadrant. Anyway, you can shorten. You don't have to write everything, but I need you to get the main idea of the directions before you try the problems, because that's what math students hate to do, is to read the directions, right?
Yes.
True. Let's go find a word problem really fast. Like a big old nasty one, like how on earth do you expect us to write that?
39.
Oh, sure.
No.
Well, we could. I was thinking like number 45. Okay, 39? Did you guys actually have that one? Oh. Then we'll look at number 45. Okay, 45! I have to write the whole thing and do the table exactly? No. For the table, what could you do? Sketch it. Just have an X, have a Y. You can say years. You can say dollars, right? Dollar sign. Years. You can do like a little, but you do not have to do all the numbers. You do not have to make it super precise, but you are identifying, hey, time is my X, money is my Y. That's the main idea of the chart, right? And then if you need any more specific information, probably you should look at the picture in the book. Because even if you tried to sketch it, it wouldn't be as good. Now, coming back. For this paragraph, how could you shorten it? U.S. minimum wage 1950 through hyphen 2001, right? U.S. minimum wage 1950 through 2001, or 2011, sorry. Okay, what would you do for letter A? Yeah, greatest increase, colon, right? Now you could say which decade, I would say when, right? Identifying time, looking at the X. Letter B. Percent with a little sign. Increase. 1990, 1995, colon. Percent increase, little sign. 1995, 2011. Do you guys get what I'm saying? You're basically just labeling what you're doing in your homework. Are we tracking? So when I say write directions and write the problems, what I mean is I want what's important, what's being given in like a word problem. I want for a section of homework the idea of what they're asking you to do, and I want you to write the problem. This also can help in that if you read the problem one way, for instance, if you read and write 2, 6, and 3, negative 6, what's the reason going to be for your wrong answer? You read/wrote the problem wrong, right? A lot of you guys read the problem wrong and you go for it and then you're like, I don't know why I messed up. I knew what I was doing. Well, half of it might just be that you're reading it wrong. You're not getting all the information in there. So take your time, write it down. And if you guys are like, this is entirely stupid. Very smart alumni, kept on taking math in college for a couple years. In her Calc 2 class, she was like, I wrote all the problems and directions and I didn't even have to. Because she liked the way that it made her process the information. And she kind of liked like being able to show something even if she didn't know how to do the problem. But besides that. Okay, section 2. This homework is where you guys need to start doing the homework the proper way in its entirety. Does that make sense? Okay, let's go ahead and get into section 2. I don't think we're going to finish section 2 because we still had a lot of logistics. Don't worry, kiddos. Once we get past all the logistics, we definitely speed up. Or some of you are scared of. We do speed up for those of you that are kind of bored. Can anybody know, or anybody say, how to fill in the blank? A solution to an equation is a point in which my plugging in results in what kind of statement? Okay, so let's do the example and see if we can figure it out. And for those of you that knew it and didn't say it, be real and be confident and shout it out. Don't shout. What do you guys think? What does this statement tell us to do with that point to check whether or not it's a solution? Plug it in. Yeah. Right? Okay. So we have a y, we have an x. When we plug it in, Hey, I like it, but let's go ahead and finish. Plugging in x and plugging in y. The question is whether or not this statement is what? True. See? Wasn't that bad? But sometimes to understand a concept, you have to do a problem first. Okay, so pretty basic. But a solution to an equation is one in which you can plug in the point and it results in a true statement. And if it was a false statement, obviously, there would be no solution. And if you guys can think back to Algebra 1, you might not be able to. There was a very specific type of problem where you would get true and false statements, and it would tell you how to answer. Solving systems of equations. What if the variables cancel out and you get a true statement? Are there solutions? Yes. Infinitely many. It's going to be true all the time, no matter what. But systems of equations, if the x's and the y's all cancel out and you get a false statement, are there solutions? No. It's called an inconsistent system. But that's Algebra 2, Algebra 1 stuff. Let's keep going. Sketching graphs. You are going to be sketching some graphs in this homework. However, we will not have reviewed every single type of function. We will not have reviewed every single type of function before this homework. So, you're going to have to review some things like how to graph a line, maybe even how to graph a parabola. However, I want to remind you, just because we're not going to review logarithmic functions and exponential functions and square root functions and rational functions with denominators with x's down there, you can still get a pretty good sketch by going back to the beginning and saying, hey, let's make a table. And that's never a bad strategy for when you're stuck on how to graph. I even tell calculus kids sometimes, why didn't you just make a table? It's a good last resort. It should be your last resort. You should think of, wait a minute, do I know how to graph this some other way? Without a table first. However, just because it's the last resort does not mean that you never use it. Worst comes to worst, make a table and start plugging in stuff. If you're on a quiz or on a test, you need to be able to visualize, and you cannot figure out how else to do it, you are not without any options. You can make a table. You do the Algebra 1 thing and plug in -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. You can branch out a little bit more and use your experience in math since Algebra 1 to help you be a little more informed about what to choose. But my question to you is, and it might be different depending on who you are, how much of graphing and of function behavior you remember. But what do you think, out of the 4 options down below, what do you think would be a good candidate for point plotting, aka for making a table? Yeah, Chris, again. Point plotting would work, but I would hope that you would remember how to graph a line. Does that make sense? Using an intercept and a slope. So I'm actually going to say no to that one as far as I would hope at this level you would know how to graph that another way. But once again, as a last resort, if you don't, yeah, sure, go make a table. So what else do you think I'm going to cross out? Yeah. Because I would hope you could use, hey, that's the slope, hey, that's the intercept, and you would be able to get there without a table. Does that make sense? Okay. Between these two, which one do you think is the hardest? Yeah, I would say this is the best candidate for point plotting, and that's even at the end of Precalc and into calculus. I even tell calculus kids to point plot that one. I hope they get to the point where they remember that's a half circle, the top half of the circle with a radius of square root of 6. If you're not sure why that's true, square both sides, move the 6, move the y squared. X squared plus y squared is 6. It's a circle. But it is a hard one to see. It's not a normal function. Even though there's a square root, and even though we're going to talk about square root of x as a parent function, it's definitely outside of the box. Great one for a table. This one, just quickly looking at it, we know it's a what? It's a quadratic, which has a shape of what as a graph? A parabola. Is it concave up like a cup or concave down like a crown? Concave up because it's positive. Get it? Negative. Anyway, concave up like a cup. Where's the vertex? Where are the zeros? You could find things out by factoring out an x setting equal to 0 and solving. You might be able to figure out that there's a 0 at 0 and a 0 at 3, so the vertex must be like halfway in between down there somewhere, and you might have been able to do it. But I would actually say, for graphing, quadratics, the table's never a bad idea either. We're going to talk about clues. We're going to review how to find zeros and how to find vertices and all that jazz, but I would agree, lines, I hope you have down like the back of your hand how to graph, right? But other functions, guys, a table's never a bad idea. Okay, let's keep talking about graphs just a little bit. With a little bit of time here. I'm trying to get through this. We're just doing the foundation of graphing. And the very basic foundation is, oh well, worst comes to worst, use a table and plug in carefully and simplify carefully. Don't mess up on the little things if you can help it. We all do, but just try to minimize those mistakes. But after we talk about tables, we can also say, well, hold on, wait a minute. For any function, we should at least try to find some of the different key characteristics like, number one, intercepts. As you guys are getting ready. Intercepts. What does intercept sound like? Intercept. X-intercepts are the points at which any function intersects the x-axis. The y-intercept, any points at which the function crosses through the y-axis. Without then making you guys think too hard, the procedures for both of these are the exact same, but the dilemma is, since the setup is so similar, it's so easy to get confused. Who are, or what are we setting equal to 0 for the x-intercept, guys? There are two different answers. Only one is correct. Set for y equal to 0. Because remember, the x-intercept actually has an x value, but the y is 0 because it has not gotten off the axis. There is no height. So set y equal to 0 and solve for x. This one usually takes some algebraic work. Maybe even harder than algebraic if you have like logs and exponentials and crazy stuff like that. It usually requires factoring. It usually requires maybe moving stuff to different sides and solving that way, etc. That's usually pretty algebraic. Whereas this one, the y coordinate, or the y part to my point, does have a point, but it has not moved right or left off the axis, so the x is 0. So long story short, you are looking for the points for the intercepts as to where they hit the x or y axis. This one is usually a bit easier, and all you're asked to do is simplify. It's easy to find y-intercepts, hard to find x-intercepts. Now, I'm not going to go through tons and tons of the example down below. The nice thing is you see a graph of the example down below. So just looking at the graph, kiddos, what are the x-intercepts? -2. Ooh. It is when x equals -2 and 2, so be careful how you say it. You could say when x equals -2 and 2, but the better way of putting it, you could just put the points, right? You're missing one. 0, 0. Good. What's the y-intercept? My question, could you have gotten that without the graph and just with the equation? Yeah, I hope so. That one, plug and chug and simplify. This one, factor and solve. Alright, so kids, you can start section 2. Wait, it's not due until Friday, so there's no homework?
No.
Never. Start. Hi guys.
What?
There is rarely no homework. Even on test days, the homework is to rest. From Precalc.
Abby, I'm dying right now.
I'm just
I'm
barely.
going to tell you now everything that's going wrong in my life.
Oh, tell me.
In about 2 seconds.
Tell me.
Okay, so I've actually splints and one of my twisted is coming in.
Oh, she's gonna suck, dude.
Bro, one of my
Sorry, kids.
my face